Good morning, Think Community. Good morning, Frank. It's been a great week, Frank, talking about money in your book, Financial Dominance, helping people really think differently and more strategically and effectively about money to come from a place of empowerment, not survival. So I've appreciated all the tools, and I highly recommend that if you miss this series, it can be found on johndwoskin.com, all of the episodes, and on all my social platforms, and will also be on the Think Business podcast in the near future. Frank, I thought we could talk a little bit about today about what people do in a financial crisis. We have just come out of, we're kind of, I don't know if we're mid-pandemic, I don't know where we are in it, right? But you know, there was a lot of financial fears when the pandemic hit. I remember, you know, in 2008 when the market crashed. I mean, there's been so many times where people have not been ready, right, or known what to do during a crash or crisis. I don't want to say a crash, but a crisis. So what are things that people can do in a financial crisis? I know you touch on it in the book, and we've talked a little bit about it, but can you give the Think community some guidance on that one?
Yeah, you know, crises, they come. They're part of the terrain. If you've lived over 15 years in life, you know that things happen. It's unexpected, and it's just part of where we live. You're right. When the pandemic started, what was the big politicians' response? Let's send out money. Let's send out stimulus checks, as if money solves all the problems. It doesn't. I'm a fan of money. It doesn't solve all the problems, but I want you to understand there's three things you can do when a financial crisis strikes. And it's really an opportunity. The first thing you got to do, of course, is deal with the immediate crisis. And, you know, you can't lose sight of what there's options available. If you're looking for, well, I don't want to even go into the details because they vary so much with individual circumstances. But the first thing is to deal with the circumstance, the crisis in front of you. But more importantly, and hear that when I say it's more important that you also look behind the crisis. Mm-hmm. That you look behind it and ask yourself with some brutal honesty, could I have been better prepared? What could I have done differently? How could I have arranged things differently? Because every crisis is a wake-up call.
Yeah.
2008 was a big wake-up call for me personally. And it took years to come out of the effects of going through the divorce and the housing crisis and the stock recession, the great global financial crisis. Yeah. All of those things came together, and that's how crises happen, don't they? It's not just one thing. It's usually right. 1, 2, 3, 4 things. So while you're getting beat up by all that stuff, stop for a minute and ask yourself, what was behind the crisis? Could I have been better prepared? And then the third thing is look beyond the crisis. This is something else that none of us take the opportunity to do, but this is that precious opportunity to find that vein of gold. What can I do differently? When I'm counseling veterans who are at risk of homelessness, being homeless, or they are homeless and they're getting some assistance from the state, I sit down with them and I said, you know, this is the solution to deal with this right now. But I want you to understand, if you don't understand how you could have been better prepared, then you won't understand how to be better prepared for the next time.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of deconstructing what you have been doing that hasn't worked for you so that you can rebuild from this point of crisis, lay a clean foundation and rebuild forward from there.
I love it. And not get too comfortable, right? I think
oh boy,
people forget so quickly, right? And then we have to remember, we have to put smart new habits in place, is what I'm hearing you say when it comes to money. And it's not always as fun, but carving out the time, from what I'm hearing you say, is critical. You know, this isn't about somewhat financial, but about 6 years ago, my father unexpectedly, never sick a day in his life, dropped dead. And it was horrible. And that's for another podcast, Frank. But what I realized is that my wife doesn't know where everything is that I've been doing, right?
Yeah.
And so we had this kind of, I don't want to call it an emergency meeting, but a very quick meeting with, the attorney, the financial planner, the the accountant, like all of these people, where we could start to put everything in place.
Yeah.
Because and the reason we hadn't done it is because we had been putting it off for year after year after year, because we just couldn't find the time, with young kids and this. But as I'm sitting here talking to you, it's so evident that we all have to carve out the time. It's almost like we almost have to make a habit of making appointments with ourselves for 30 minutes on maybe the first Saturday of every month, to really kind of update, dive in, get back to center, recheck ourselves, and do a business planning session, a life planning session with ourselves, and get really real.
And what will happen about when you do that is your stress will lower. You'll be more comfortable with where you are. And when the next crisis strikes, you're going to feel like the lucky one.
Yeah.
And in fact, you're not lucky. You're intentional.
Yeah.
You're taking control, and you're getting engaged with your finances.
That's a great way to end the series on such a perfect, beautiful word about being intentional. Thank you. Thank you for the whole week. I'm just going to real quickly, you are a leading authority in financial readiness training and those with a military mindset through your work with the Department of Defense, Arizona's Attorney General, the Arizona Department of Veteran Services, and multiple VSOs. You've personally logged over 4,000 hours of counseling service members and vets from all ranks, stages, and issues. And you've spoken to tens of thousands on the principles of financial readiness. You're a speaker, you're an author, and you're a guy who's really been generous with his time this week to do coffee with John, with me, and the Think community. So I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for all of I know you work with people outside of the military, but I'm grateful for all of the people in the military. Thank you for your service that you have helped, not only in one-on-one, but also through your books. Grateful for all people who serve this country. And I thank you, Frank. It's been a blast. Where can everybody connect with you and buy your books?
Thank you, John. I love this, and I loved Coffee with John. I'm going to be a big fan of your podcast and these coffees going forward. You can reach out to me, frankmolinar.com. I have a site dedicated to the book, financialdominancebook.com. If you want some helpful worksheets and some tips and tricks, they're available there. And of course, go get a copy of the book. It's Audible, Kindle, paperback, available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any of your retailers that are out there.
Great. Frank, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Very grateful for your time. Think community, same with yours. If Frank can help you in any way, reach out. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, everybody.